Good morning, dear students. Today we will be studying a new poem, When You Are Old. Now remember, this poem is not addressed to you, not when you are old. Here, we need to understand a bit of background with regard to this particular poem, especially with reference to the poet, that is William Butler Yeats, who is otherwise known as WB Yeats. Don't confuse him with another poet of the English literature, that is Keats. Keats is different and Yeats is different. A bit of knowledge about WB Yeats. He was born in 1865. He is an Irish poet. He is considered greatest poet in English language in the 20th century by 1 century. A Nobel Prize awarded poet for literature in 1923. His major theme of love poetry was love. So you can very well understand the poem that we are going to study, that is When You Are Old, surely would be on the theme love. Now, little bit knowledge about the poem. In this particular poem, that is When You Are Old, which we are going to study, in the poem, the poet himself is the speaker, imagines his beloved in the future, reading the book of poetry written by him in the present. Remember? He imagines his beloved in the future, reading the book of poetry written by him in the present. She asked by him to imagine the future and think of the past, living in the present. Very complicated idea. He is asking her to imagine the future. Okay? Imagine the future and think of the past when she lives in the present. These things are possible in poetry. He is asking her to understand the true love he had for her in comparison to others who had desired her external beauty only. See, concept of true love is given over here. If you remember, when I began Romeo and Juliet, there, when Romeo looks at Juliet, he says, "Did my heart ever love?" And we knew very well Romeo was in love with Rosalind prior to falling in love with Juliet. And still, when he looked at Juliet, he asked, "Did my heart ever love?" Meaning to say, he did not have true love with Rosalind. Then what was it? I think we need to go through a few words here, some terms with regard to this. And this is very well required even otherwise for us. And the first term here is attraction. What is this? Attraction to the opposite sex. A boy, a man feeling attracted to a girl or a woman, or vice versa. So attraction. This is quite normal because any boy feeling attracted to a girl or any man feeling attracted to a woman, there is nothing abnormal in that. As we grow up at a particular stage, we feel attracted. This attraction is quite normal. There is nothing abnormal. That there is nothing, nothing to be worried in that. We feel attracted. In fact, many a times we deck ourselves, we dress, we adorn ourselves in order to feel attracted to the other person. So that's the first term, attraction. The second term I would like you to know very well is something called crush. I'm sure as teenagers you are aware of this term crush. But what happens? Many a times we consider crush as love. Now see, even crush is a kind of attraction to the opposite sex. A man feeling a crush for a woman or a boy to a girl. I'm sure in social media we read about this. I had a crush on him or I had a crush on her. Remember, this crush doesn't last for long. It's for a shorter period of time. And we remember it forever. We usually don't forget it that I had a crush. Eventually, gradually, this feeling attraction disappears and we feel crush on another person maybe. Hence, crush is not true love. Remember, attraction is not true love. Crush is also not a true love. It's a momentary. It's only for 1 month, 2 months or 3 months or maybe a year or so. Then slowly that attraction or that feeling rather disappears from the mind. The third term that I have listed here is infatuation. Infatuation, a kind of false love. Remember this? Infatuation, a kind of false love. So what happens when we are unable to differentiate between attraction or crush or love? We can call it as a kind of infatuation. In fact, the mind doesn't work, only the heart works. We think from the heart level and not from the mind level. Hence, we read many a times in the newspapers where the news becomes very interesting for all of us that a particular girl has run away with a particular boy. They run and they live for 1 or 2 months, then they come back and their normal life begins. As if they were not related at all, as if there was no relationship between the two. And what is the reason? In fact, it is called infatuation, a kind of momentary attraction, momentary feeling or falling for the other person. Infatuation. Remember, even infatuation is not true love. And the last one is love. Last one is love. Well, usually we say love, and I have a definition. What is love? I usually say it is an irresistible desire of a person to be desired by the other person irresistibly, which is best fulfilled in the marriage. Love is an irresistible desire of a person to be desired by the other person. Remember, the other person refers to the person of opposite sex, man or a woman, boy or a girl. And this irresistible desire to be attracted, to be loved by the other person is best fulfilled in the marriage. And I call it as love. We call it as true love. Shakespeare has written sonnet on true love. I think sonnet number 116 speaks about this true love. Love is not love if it alters when it finds alteration. It is a permanent mark. He goes on explaining what is true love. Now, I don't go much on the discussion of this particular these different terms. Why I brought these terms into this particular poem is that we are going to discuss here love and attraction and crush and infatuation with regard to WB Yeats. Okay, so that's why I brought these terms. Now keep these terms at the back of your mind and let's go ahead and study the poem. A beautiful poem only of just 12 lines. I would read it for you. When you are old and grey and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read. Dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. You see, here there are 3 verses, 3 stanzas. In the first stanza, he is inviting his beloved, that is William Butler Yeats, WB Yeats, is inviting his beloved to read the book of poems that he has written. And in the second paragraph, second verse stanza, he describes his true love for her in comparison with other people who had loved her. And in the third, he's asking her to think how he has been separated from her. That is, how true love is absent in her love just because she did not say yes to him. You see, these are the three lines of thought that we find in this particular poem. Right. Now you need to know a kind of background to understand this particular poem. The poet, that is WB Yeats, was in love with a woman called, a girl called Maud Gonne. Maud Gonne. Don't say Maud Gonne, that is wrong. The poem is addressed to Maud Gonne. Maud Gonne is the woman, his beloved, with whom he was attracted to. Not only attracted to, he was in love with this person. This is that historical figure. Okay, this is the image of Miss or Mrs. Maud Gonne. Even she was a poetess. She used to write. In fact, it is said she used to write in national this one, what is that, magazines and all. She used to write. She was a nationalist writer, well known. Maybe there she had, or WB Yeats had reasons to fall in love with her. And there are no reasons to feel attracted to a person, and you don't feel attracted to each and everyone. It's only usually true love is only with one person. So I think WB Yeats fell in love with this particular woman who was known as Maud Gonne. What happened? Yeats compared her to Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy. He proposed to her 4 times between 1891 to 1901. So you can imagine the span of these 10 years, 4 times he approached her, expressing his love to her. Did she accept his proposal? Sad enough, she did not accept. She did not accept. You see, one may feel attracted to the other person, and the reciprocal from the other side, it should be the same kind of attraction. Otherwise, there is no meaning in love. It becomes one-sided attraction. And that is what happened even in this particular poem, in the life of WB Yeats. He proposed to Maud Gonne, but Maud Gonne did not like him. Maybe she had other plans. Not that they were not attractive, not that WB Yeats was not handsome. Love is a different kind of attraction. It doesn't depend only on external beauty. Similarly, Maud Gonne, maybe she was very beautiful. There must have been particular reasons what made WB Yeats to fall in love with her. Hence he goes forward and proposes to her once, twice, thrice, and 4 times. And all the 4 times the reply was negative. The reply was a firm no from Maud Gonne. Now what does WB Yeats do? Very well. He is a poet, so he would take up, or he would have recourse to, the pen and paper. He goes and pens, he goes and writes a beautiful poem, a kind of eulogy, kind of praise for her, at the same time his own love for her. More than it's an eulogy for her, it is a eulogy for his own love for her. And he says, when you are old, you read this poem and then you will understand how much I loved you. And you see, so WB Yeats had no idea what tragedy Maud Gonne is going to face in her life. And for the worst fears, the tragedy comes true. In fact, she had to sit and think about this particular love when she was old, because further we will see what happened in her life. Now you will find here Major John McBride. He was a Navy officer and was chosen by her instead of WB Yeats. That is, Maud Gonne, instead of WB Yeats, who was in love with her, she chooses to marry Major John McBride. In fact, not only she chooses, she marries him. She marries him and they begin a family life. Were they happy in their family life? Was the marriage successful? Did they find a kind of happiness, or what you call bliss, in their married life? Sad enough, they didn't. Okay, they didn't. What happened? It seems there was a kind of breakup between the two, and General Major McBride was accused of violence, domestic violence against Maud Gonne. That's how they got separated. They did not live a fully satisfied married life. They separated within no time. No sooner did they get married, they get separated. I think that's enough for us to understand the personal life of Maud Gonne and WB Yeats. Now what do we see in this particular poem? There are many images in the poem which will make us understand the depth and width of his love for her. You will find your image of light, fire, old age, and tender age or teenage or young age. You will find different kind of imageries in this poem. And you must remember, to understand a poem, we should have, or the poem should create imageries in our mind. Let's go back to that Romeo and Juliet poem where different images of again night and darkness, black, white were created. Similarly here also, even the other poem On Children were written by Khalil Gibran, where we saw different images were created in our mind. This creation of images or imagery helps us to understand the poem very well. So here also we have got different images of old age, fire or attraction or imagination. All this helps us to understand the poem. Right. Now let's understand the poem from the beginning. The poem begins, when you are old and grey and full of sleep. You see different terms that are used. When you are old, I said, when you are old doesn't refer to you, it refers to Maud Gonne. And who is addressing her? That is WB Yeats. It's directly telling her, when you are old, well, now that I propose to you, I love you so much, but you reject my love. But do one thing, when you grow old, in your old age, what you do? And he, very specific, very minutely explains. When you are old and grey, when black hair turns into grey, you see, black hair and it turns into grey when you become old, and grey and full of sleep. Meaning to say, old people, when at 60 they get retired from government service. And then, not that they are useless. In other words, they are retired from the active service. Hence, they are full of sleep. Full of sleep refers to full of rest. Remember, not that they are always sleeping. It refers to a restful period. So rest, where you are not actively involved in any kind of service. So when you reach that stage, what he says, still further he says, and nodding by the fire. Now this particular image concept is very important. In Karwar or in this area, we will not find this concept of fire. What I mean to say is, in Europe, where in cold countries, where it is very, very cold, every house has a particular place, okay, where a place is kept for fire. And why is this fire kept there? Why it keeps on burning all the time? Because since it's very cold outside, they require the warmth. Hence, this fire gives the warmth to their physique, to their body. Hence, she says, and especially the old people, it's very, very important they sit by the fire, or rather they are kept warm. They are kept warm. The warmth of the cloth is not enough, hence fire is there. So she says, usually you find these old people sitting very close to the fire and reading a book or relaxing. And he asks her to imagine nodding by the fire, sitting by the side of the fire. Take down this book. Which book? He's referring to the book of poetry written by WB Yeats on her Maud Gonne. He has written many poems. Usually, see, WB Yeats was very much influenced, inspired by her beauty. Beauty external, beauty internal, by her personality, by her character. And he must have written many poems on her. So she says, come on, take this particular book. Not now, when you're old. What to do next? And slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once. He's asking her, you need to go through the poems. You need to read the poems. You see, reading the poems doesn't mean just loudly pronounce the words. It's a kind of phonemes and syllabic pronunciation. No, read, we use another term there, reading in between the lines. Because a poet says something and they mean many things. We have a lesson on George Borges, where he speaks about the poetic act. The poetic act takes place when the poet writes and when the reader reads. The poet writes with a different intention and reader understands it differently. Similarly here, he says, read my poems. When you read the poems, please understand whatever you understand, or at least the purpose for which I wrote. He says, what you have to do, when you have to read, you need to dream of the soft look which your eyes had once. Meaning to say, he must have written on her external beauty, on her appearance, the soft look your eyes had once, where now you are old, your eyes must have gone inside. They must have gone into a kind of pond. But when you are young, the eyes speak everything. They say the eyes, they never tell lies. In fact, face is the index of the mind, and even eyes comes into that. We see by looking at the eyes of a person, we read many things. The eyes always reveal so many things to us. So she says, he says, dream of the soft look. Soft look refers to the beauty, the attraction which she had when she was young, which made him to feel attracted to her. And then of their shadows deep. A very meaningful word there. Very, very, very meaningful. He says, shadows deep. Though you had those eyes with a soft look, at the background of this soft look, there are the shadows. You see, we have a day, and the day, every day when we go into the bright sun, we have a shadow. Shadows refers to the darker side. To the darker side. Shadow, where there is no light, where you find shadow. So similarly, he says, soft look in one place, and another place, the shadows deep. That is, now it is like this. But it would one day end up in these particular shadows. That is the darker side of your life also. You need to imagine. What is the darker side? What you feel at the old age. That is what he refers to. So there is a contrast between the soft looks and the shadows deep. Let's go over to the second paragraph. So in the first paragraph, we saw how he is asking her to sit by the fire, okay, and read those poems and imagine the earlier life which she had, okay, earlier attraction she had. And of course, it's quite easy for us to imagine. We are very good in imagination. Let's go to the second stanza verse where it says, how many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true. This is what I meant by attraction or crush or infatuation. He says, how many loved your moments of glad grace. You see, we will find in the slide here, images here, when a girl is quite young and if she's very attractive to look at, there are many people behind her, there are many boys behind her, trying to draw her attention, trying to get that what you call love, a kind of attention from her. So Yeats is referring to those relationships which he must have seen them. He says, many loved your moments of glad grace. Glad grace refers to the younger days. Grace, we say, when a person is lovely to look at, we say, he or she has a graceful face, a graceful appearance. So glad grace, that is happiness in the face, refers to the young age. So many loved your moments of glad grace. Many were behind you just because you were pretty attractive. You were very pretty to look at. You were very beautiful to look at. And that's why many were behind you. And he says, very vehemently opposes that idea and says, loved your beauty with love false or true. So what is that false love? False love refers to attraction, refers to crush, refers to infatuation. Maybe today we call it as time pass. Many of us feel attracted to the other person and develop a kind of relationship. And later we call it was for the time pass. And here he brings all of them here. He says, they loved your beauty with love false or true. Beauty in the sense, they were behind you because you were attractive to look at. We don't feel attracted to a person who is not beautiful. Though I may be wrong in saying that, because beauty is a subjective thought. The person who is beautiful to me may not be beautiful to you. The person who is beautiful to you may not be beautiful to me. So whatever it is, but there is a kind of objective beauty. We say flowers are very beautiful and they look beautiful to everybody. Certain people are very beautiful and they look beautiful to all. Similarly here he says, well, all these people loved your external beauty. They loved your moments of those grace. They never loved you. They never loved you. Or in other words, there was no true love in their relationship. And he says that, but one man loved the pilgrim soul in you. And who is this one man? This one man refers to WB Yeats. He says he loved her. He had loved her with true sense of love. And he calls it as, I loved not your external beauty. I did not love your lock of hair. I did not love you how you look. I did not love. No, I loved your soul, the pilgrim soul. So remember this pilgrim soul. The soul, we say man is made up of body and soul. And the soul has no death. Okay, and soul is beautiful because soul belongs to God. Atma, it belongs to Paramatma. So whatever belongs to God has to be beautiful. So remember, if you belong to God, you will be really beautiful. And if you belong to Satan, if you belong to evil, then you are not going to be beautiful. You cannot be beautiful. So here he says, one man loved the pilgrim soul in you. I did not love your external beauty. I was not attracted to how you appear. I was attracted to your pilgrim soul. And he says, love the sorrows of your changing face. I fell in love with you not only by your external beauty, I also love the sorrows of your changing face. See, when you are a teenager, your face looks very attractive. But when you grow old, you will find face is not so attractive. You will find pimples there. You will find wrinkles there. Your face becomes very, very old and nobody would like to look at that face. And what do you find that time in that face? Only sorrows. Which sorrow? Sorrows of the old age, sorrows of sickness. And the poet calls it, I loved your sorrows of your changing face. Meaning to say, I loved you not only now, I love your past, I loved your present, I loved your future. In other words, I loved you as a person and not as a commodity. I loved you as really a soul. I saw the soul in you, that particular soul I loved, and not your physique or not your external appearance that I loved. See, this is what we mean by true love. You must have seen we have our own parents. In goodness or in badness, in happiness or in sorrow, they are always together. You see, there may not be any attraction left physically, but still they are together because there is that bonding within them, there is that love within them. And every difficulty in their life bonds them more or brings them closer together because their love is there. Otherwise, any marriage would end up in divorce. Why it ends up in divorce? Because there is no bonding, there is no relationship. Maybe they fell in love with only external beauty. You may say, no, there was some problems, genuine problems. No, but in the Christian marriage it is said, they give a promise that I love you in good times and in bad times, in sorrow and in happiness, in sickness or in good health, I love you. Meaning to say, it is a bond which never can be broken. Love is firm there. Love is firm and it is confirmed there. It cannot change. And WB Yeats is speaking about that kind of love. That kind of love. Very beautiful concept of love is presented over here. Let's go over to the third paragraph, third stanza. It says, and bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled. As I said in the beginning, you see here, first stanza speaks about old age. He's asking her to get ready to read the poems and imagine. In the second, he goes back to those younger age. In the third paragraph, he says, well, again comes back to the old age and he says, and bending down beside the glowing bars. What does glowing bar refer here to? Glowing bars refers to that particular fire where the bars of wood always glow with a lot of fire to keep the area warm. So she says, you bend down because you need that heat. When you are there, bending down by the glowing fires, murmur a little sadly. Why is he asking her to murmur? He is asking her, you need to murmur against yourself. You need to feel guilty for yourself. What is the guilt? That he says, how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead. He says, he's saying, there you would understand that I am absent in your life. There you would understand my love was really true love for you. And says, well, in your old age, bending down the fires, on one side there is the warmth of the fire, and the other side you have the poetry written by me upon you, and there you will understand that true love is absent. And there you would say that love is absent in your life. And where is this love gone? He says, my love is pure for you. And he says, paced upon the mountains overhead. And where is this love? It's gone away from your life. But where it is gone to the other side of the mountains. I mean, that's the understanding they had. You see, that it is not here means it's gone out of the boundaries, it's gone out of the area. So he says it's paced, it went fast towards the mountains overhead and hid his face amid the crowd of stars. I'm sure now it's easy for us to understand what Juliet meant for Romeo when she said, and after my death, cut him into stars and make him small pieces stars, and so that fix him in the sky so that he may brighten, he may enlighten the face of the sky, so that people may not worship the garish sun but the stars. You see, usually we say when a person very close to us has died, he has become a star or she has become a star. Many a times parents, when there are small children, suppose the father or mother is dead, in the evenings they bring them out and they show them the stars. So look, your dad is there, look, your mom is there, or granny is there, or brother is there. Meaning to say, the laughing people who die, sometimes we say they become stars and they shine throughout. And here he says to him, to her, that I have become a star and I have hidden my face among the stars. I have hidden my face among the stars, and you should understand this. He's telling her, this is what is going to happen in your life. How sad enough, you see, a poet, he did not know what was to happen in her life. But one thing he knew, that his love was true. He also knew that this woman, that is Montcalm, is rejecting his love. So he has written in that poem that this is the kind of warning that I would be giving you, which you would understand only later. What a tragedy in her life that in fact all these words came true. I'm sure she must have taken the poems and she must have been sitting near the fire and thinking she should have said yes to WB Yeats. If she was to say yes, such things would not have happened in her life. But she went against this true love and she fell for John McBride, and where their marriage broke, it was on rocks. And in fact, he was ill-treating her. I told you already that he was accused of domestic violence in life. So finally, the poem ends there, only just, I told you 12 lines, and it ends there. Well, what does the poet do here? The poet personifies love in this stanza. He elaborates themes of romance and loss effectively. You see how well we are able to travel from one phase of life to the other phase of life. He says, well, elaborate the theme of romance suddenly at one place. First paragraph, we think about that. Second paragraph, he brings us how deeply he loved her. And in the last paragraph, well, that romance is gone, only the old age remain. And only what has remained finally? Only the memories remain and nothing else remain. This is the reality of our life. We do not know what is ahead of what is stored for us in the future. Okay, so but we have to live this life. He had told, if you remember, love the sorrows of your changing face. So I told you already, the marriage ended with the kind of there was a break in their marriage and there was a divorce in their marriage, domestic violence, and you see, the marriage ended. This is the same person with whom she was married. I'm sure she must have murmured against it. Okay, as she was sitting by the fire, she must have murmured very sadly how true love, that is WB Yeats, is absent in her life or was absent in her life. And it's going to happen to all of us. If we are not careful, we may have to think about it later. We may have to murmur. We may have to develop this guilt conscience that I should have been very, very careful. Students, this is what we need to understand many times. We need to be very, very careful. We have to be very, very choosy. We have to be very careful, not only in falling in love, in anything that we do, because we need to think and keep the next step. Otherwise, we are going to pay for it. Otherwise, we are going to crying over it. And there is no point in crying over the spoiled milk. It came true in the life of Montcalm. It should not happen in our life. Okay, the love went and hid his face among the crowd of stars. Finally, that's it. We can only look at that and think about that and nothing else. So, thank you very much. And I hope you understood this particular poem. Thank you and God bless you.